Imagine watching your child fade, knowing there's only one person who can save her. Now imagine that person is the same man who shattered your heart into 1,000 pieces. She had no choice. Her daughter needed a donor. Fast. Time was running out. But when the hospital revealed the only compatible match, her world turned upside down. Would she beg the man who once left her without a goodbye? Could he be trusted to save the life he never knew existed? Or was he about to break her all over again? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where real emotions meet unforgettable stories. Today's story is one of betrayal, sacrifice, and unexpected redemption. And trust me, you'll want to stay to the very end because the twist will leave you speechless. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and spending a few minutes with us today. We don't take that for granted. If you love stories that grip your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. And if this story touches you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who loves a good plot twist. Her daughter needed a donor. The only match was the man who broke her heart. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning. Naomi Chun was in her Los Angeles architectural firm, reviewing blueprints for a new downtown high-rise, when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Ariel's elementary school, and something in her chest tightened. "Miss Chin, this is Principal Williams from Riverside Elementary. Ariel collapsed during recess. The paramedics are taking her to Los Angeles Children's Hospital." The blueprints scattered the floor as Naomi grabbed her keys, her mind racing. Ariel had been tired lately, but what 7-year-old wasn't? She'd been drinking more water, using the bathroom more frequently, but Naomi had attributed it to a growth spurt. Welcome back, Golden Family. I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you who subscribes, likes, comments, and shares these stories. Your love and support fuel my passion for bringing you these powerful tales that touch the soul. Today's story will test everything you believe about pride, forgiveness, and the lengths we'll go to protect those we love. Please watch till end and rate it from 0 to 100. Now, let's get back to the story. The emergency room was chaos. Naomi burst through the doors, her heart hammering against her ribs. My daughter, Ariel Chin, she was brought in by ambulance. Room 12, the nurse said gently. Dr. Martinez is with her. Naomi found her daughter surrounded by machines, looking impossibly small in the hospital bed. Ariel's usually bright eyes were clouded with exhaustion, her olive skin pale against the white sheets. "Mommy." Ariel's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, baby." Naomi took her daughter's hand, trying to keep her voice steady. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Really tired. And my tummy hurts." Dr. Martinez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair, approached them. "Miss Chin, I'm Dr. Martinez, Ariel's nephrologist. We need to run some tests." Nephrologist. Naomi's medical knowledge was limited, but she knew enough to be terrified. "That's kidneys." "Yes." Ariel's presenting with several concerning symptoms. "We need to move quickly." The next few hours blurred together. Blood tests, urine samples, ultrasounds. Ariel was brave through it all, asking questions about the machines and making the technicians laugh despite their worried expressions. But Naomi could see the fear in her daughter's dark eyes. Eyes that looked so much like. She pushed the thought away. She'd gotten very good at that over the years. Miss Chin, Dr. Martinez, found her in the family waiting room at midnight. "We have the results." Naomi's hands trembled as she set down her cold coffee. "Please, just tell me straight." Ariel has end-stage renal failure. Both kidneys are functioning at less than 10% capacity. The words hit her like a physical blow, but she's only 7. How is that possible? Sometimes these things develop gradually. Children are remarkably resilient and can compensate for a long time before showing symptoms. But we're past that point now. What does this mean? What are our options? Dr. Martinez sat down beside her. "We'll start dialysis immediately to stabilize her, but that's not a long-term solution for A child Ariel's age. She needs a kidney transplant. Then we do that. We get her. On the list. The waiting list for pediatric kidneys can be years, Miss Chin. And even then, there's no guarantee we'll find a suitable match. Dr. Martinez paused. The best option is a living donor. A blood relative has the highest chance of compatibility. Naomi's mouth went dry. I've been tested for everything. When Ariel was born, I know my blood type. We're not compatible. What about Ariel's father? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Naomi closed her eyes, and suddenly she was 25 again, standing in the doorway of that New York hotel room, watching the man she loved with his arms around another woman, Julian Montenegro, award-winning architect, the man who'd made her believe in fairy tales before crushing them under his Italian leather shoes, the man who'd never known he had a daughter because Naomi had been too proud and too hurt to tell him. Miss Chin, she opened her eyes. Ariel's father were not in contact. I understand family situations can be complicated, but you don't understand. Naomi's voice was sharper than she intended. He doesn't even know she exists. Dr. Martinez's eyebrows rose slightly, but her voice remained professional. That does complicate things, but Miss Chin, we're talking about your daughter's life. Drop a comment below and let me know. What would you do if you had a contact? Someone who hurt you deeply to save your child? Because what Naomi does next will change everything. Later that night, alone in Ariel's room, Naomi watched her daughter sleep. The dialysis machine hummed quietly beside the bed. And Ariel looked so small, so fragile, hooked up to all those tubes and wires. Mommy. Ariel's voice was soft, groggy, from the medication. I'm here, sweetheart. Am I really sick? Naomi smoothed Ariel's dark hair the exact shade of Julian's, away from her face. Yes, baby, but Mommy's going to make sure you get better. Promise. The word was a knife to her heart. I promise. Ariel smiled sleepily and closed her eyes again. I love you, Mommy. I love you, too, more than all the stars in the sky. As Ariel drifted back to sleep, Naomi pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She kept his number all these years, though she couldn't say why. It was saved under simply G, as if even typing his full name would give him too much power over her heart. Julian Bennett, the man who taught her what passion felt like, who'd made her believe in love at first sight when he'd walked into her firm New York office to discuss a collaboration, the man whose daughter was fighting for her life 3 feet away from her. Naomi stared at the screen for what felt like hours. Every rational part of her brain told her to make the call, but the broken heart that still lived in her chest whispered all the reasons why she couldn't. He'd called her a mistake, his biggest mistake. She'd built a life without him, raised their daughter without him, succeeded in her career without him. Did she really want to let him back into their world? But then Ariel shifted in her sleep, and the dialysis machine beeped, and Naomi knew she didn't have a choice. Her finger hovered over the call button. She pressed it. It rang once, twice. Montenegro, his voice, deep and slightly accented from his Italian grandmother, sent electricity shooting through her nervous system. In one word, she was transported back to every whispered endearment, every passionate argument, every moment of pure joy she'd felt in his arms. Julian, her voice came out as barely a whisper. The silence that followed felt eternal. She could hear him breathing, could almost feel his shock through the phone. Naomi, his voice was stunned, disbelieving. Is this really after all this time? I need to see you, Naomi. If this is about what happened, it's not about us, Julian. It's about your daughter. The silence this time was deafening. My what, Ariel? She's 7 years old, and she's dying. And according to the doctors, you might. Years of unspoken pain. Naomi could hear Julian's sharp intake of breath, could almost see him running his hand through his dark hair the way he always did when he was processing shocking news. A daughter, he whispered, his voice breaking. I have a daughter, and you never told me. Julian, I can explain. 7 years, Naomi. 7 years of her life, and I didn't even know she existed. His voice was rising now, that familiar Italian passion bleeding through his carefully controlled English. How could you keep this from me? Naomi felt her own anger flare. Don't you dare make this about your wounded feelings when my baby is lying in a hospital bed fighting for her life. Our baby, he corrected, his voice raw. She's our baby, isn't she? The possessiveness in his tone made her heart clench. Yes, she whispered. She's yours. What's wrong with her? What kind of sick? Tell me everything. Despite everything between them, Naomi heard genuine anguish in his voice. She explained Ariel's condition, the need for a transplant, the compatibility issues. Julian listened without interrupting, and she could almost see him pacing his New York penthouse, his mind already racing through solutions. I'll be on the next flight to Los Angeles, he said without hesitation. Julian, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. His voice was steel now, the voice that had commanded boardrooms and convinced city councils to approve his most ambitious designs. I have a daughter who needs me. Nothing else matters. The line went dead. Naomi stared at her phone, her hands shaking. What had she done? In less than 24 hours, the carefully constructed life she'd built for herself and Ariel was about to be turned upside down by the one man she'd never been able to forget. Ariel stirred in her bed. Mommy, who are you talking to? Just a doctor's sweetheart. Go back to sleep. But sleep was impossible for Naomi. She spent the rest of the night pacing the hospital corridors, drinking terrible coffee and trying to prepare herself for the inevitable confrontation. Julian Bennett didn't just arrive. He descended on Los Angeles. Children's Hospital like a force of nature. Naomi heard him before she saw him, his voice carrying down the corridor as he spoke rapid-fire Italian into his phone, undoubtedly rearranging his entire life with the efficiency that had made him one of the world's most sought-after architects. When he rounded the corner, Naomi's breath caught in her throat. 8 years had only made him more devastating. His dark hair was shorter now, styled perfectly despite the red-eye flight. His charcoal suit was wrinkled from travel, but he still moved with that confident stride that had first caught her attention in a crowded conference room. His green eyes, the same eyes Ariel had inherited, found hers across the waiting room, and the world seemed to stop. Naomi, Julian. They stood there for a moment, drinking each other in. He looked older, more mature, but that dangerous magnetism that had drawn her to him like a moth to flame was still there, crackling between them, despite everything that had happened. Where is she? His voice was gentler now, uncertain. Where's our daughter? The word sent a shiver through her. She's sleeping. Julian, before you meet her, we need to talk. We need to talk. His laugh was bitter. We should have talked 8 years ago, Naomi, before you disappeared without a trace. Before you robbed me of 7 years of my daughter's life. You want to do this here in a hospital corridor? I want to do this wherever you'll finally tell me the truth. Why did you leave, Naomi? Why did you vanish like I meant nothing? To you? The hurt in his voice almost broke her resolve, almost made her forget why she'd run in the first place. But then the memory crashed over her. Claudia Rossi in his arms, his voice saying those terrible words. You know why I left? No, I don't. One day we were planning our future together, talking about the firm we'd build, the life we'd have. The next day you were gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just an empty apartment and a forwarding address that led nowhere. Naomi stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious right now? You're going to stand there and pretend you don't remember that night? Claudia's surprise visit? When I walked and on. Julian's face went pale. Claudia, what does she have to do with? His eyes widened as understanding dawned. Madonna mia, you saw us. I heard. You too. Naomi's voice was barely controlled. I heard you tell her that I was your biggest mistake. that she was the one you'd always loved. Naomi, no, you don't understand what happened. I understand perfectly. Your ex-fiancé decided she wanted you back and you couldn't get rid of me fast enough? Julian stepped closer, his eyes intense. Is that really what you think? That I would throw away what we had for Claudia? I know what I saw, Julian. I know what I heard. Before he could respond, a small voice interrupted them. Excuse me, are you fighting about me? They both turned to see Ariel standing in the doorway of her room, dragging her four-pole behind her. She looked impossibly small in her hospital gown, but her dark eyes, Julian's eyes, were bright with curiosity and intelligence. Julian's face went white. He dropped to his knees right there in the corridor, staring at his daughter as if she were a miracle made flesh. Ariel, his voice was a whisper. That's me. Are you the doctor Mommy was talking to on the phone? Naomi's heart was breaking watching them meet for the first time. Ariel looked so much like Julian, it was almost painful. The same stubborn chin, the same expressive eyes, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. No, sweetheart, Julian said softly, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your daddy. Ariel's eyes widened. She looked from Julian to Naomi and back again. My daddy? But Mommy said my daddy lived far away and couldn't visit. I didn't know about you. Prince. Julian said, the Italian endearment falling naturally from his lips. But I'm here, now, and I'm never going to leave you again. If you believe in the power of a parent's love, hit that like button right now, because what happens next will show you just how far a father will go for his child. Ariel studied Julian's face with the serious expression of a child trying to solve a puzzle. You have my eyes, she said finally. Julian laughed, and it was the first genuine laugh Naomi had heard from him. Actually, you have mine in your grandmother's chin. You would have loved her. Mommy, is he really my daddy? Naomi knelt beside them, her heart in her throat. Yes, baby, he really is. Ariel looked at Julian again, then did something that made both adults' hearts stop. She stepped forward and hugged him. Julian's arms came around his daughter, and Naomi watched 8 years of anger and hurt crumble in his face. He buried his face in Ariel's dark hair, and his shoulders shook with silent sobs. I'm sorry I wasn't here before, he whispered, but I'm here now and I'm going to take care of you. Are you going to help me get better? Ariel asked, pulling back to look at him. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you get better, Julian promised. Dr. Martinez chose that moment to appear with a clipboard. Miss Chin, I see we have a visitor. This is Julian Bennett, Naomi said stiffly. Ariel's biological father. Dr. Martinez's face lit up. Perfect timing. Mr. Montenegro, we like to run some tests to see if you're a compatible donor for Ariel. Whatever you need, Julian said. Immediately, take my blood. Run every test you have. I'll do anything. Dad. Ariel's small voice made them all turn. She was looking at Julian with wonder, as if testing out the word. Will it hurt when you give me your kidney? Julian's jaw clenched, but his voice was gentle, maybe a little principessa. But I promise you, I won't feel any pain that could compare to losing you before I've even gotten to know you. Ariel nodded, solemnly, then brightened. Can you stay with me while they do the tests? Mommy gets scared when they take my blood, but she tries to hide it. Julian looked at Naomi, and for a moment, the years of hurt fell away. They were just two, parents terrified for their child. If your mommy says it okay, Julian said carefully. Naomi wanted to say no. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to keep him at arm's length. But looking at Ariel's hopeful face, she found herself nodding. He can stay. As they walked toward the lab, Ariel slipped her small hand into Julian's large one. Daddy, will you tell me about where you live? Mommy says New York has really tall buildings. I designed those tall buildings, Principessa. And yes, I'll tell you all about them. Naomi watched them walk ahead of her, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. Ariel was already chattering away, telling Julian about school and her friends and her favorite books. And Julian was listening with the intensity he'd once reserved for his most important clients. But even as her heart warmed at seeing them together, Naomi couldn't forget the conversation they'd been having before Ariel interrupted them. Julian's confusion about that night with Claudia had seemed genuine. But how could he not remember? How could he not remember destroying everything they'd built together? The blood test would tell them if Julian could save Ariel's life. But who was going to save Naomi's heart from breaking all over again? The test results came back the next morning with news that felt like cosmic irony. Dr. Martinez found Naomi and Julian in the family waiting room where they'd maintained an awkward distance while Ariel napped. "It's remarkable," Dr. Martinez said, consulting her chart. "Mr. Montenegro, you're not just compatible, you're a perfect match. The genetic markers align in a way we rarely see, even between family members." Julian closed his eyes in relief. "When can we do the surgery?" "We need to run a few more tests. Make sure you're healthy enough for procedure. But if everything checks out, we could schedule it for next week." After Dr. Martinez left, Julian and Naomi sat in silence. The weight of what lay ahead, the surgery, the recovery, the inevitable conversations about their future pressed down on them both. "Julian," Naomi began, but he held up a hand. "Before you say anything, I need to tell you about that night about Claudia." Naomi's jaw tightened. "I don't want to hear your excuses. They're not excuses. They're the truth. And Ariel deserves to have parents who aren't carrying around 8 years of lies." Despite herself, Naomi found herself listening. Julian leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly together. "Claudia came to my apartment that night without warning. She was crying, hysterical. She told me she'd been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer." Naomi's breath caught. Whatever she'd expected him to say, it wasn't that. She said she was dying, that she had maybe 6 months left. "She begged me to marry her, to give her those last months as my wife. She said it was her dying wish." "So you held her," Naomi said quietly. "You comforted her." "I held her while she cried." "Yes, because despite everything that had gone wrong between us, I'd loved her once, and she was terrified and alone, and you told her I was a mistake." Julian's face contorted with pain. "No, Naomi, I told her that. Letting her go had been my mistake. That choosing my career over love had been my mistake. I told her that you had shown me what real love felt like, and that I wouldn't hurt you the way I'd hurt her." The words hit Naomi like a physical blow. "What?" "I told Claudia that I was going to ask you to marry me, that I'd already bought the ring. I told her that you weren't a consolation prize or a rebound. You were the woman I wanted to spend my life with." Naomi stared at him, her world tilting on its axis. "But I heard you say." "You heard what you expected to hear," Julian said gently. "Or maybe you heard what your fears told you were hearing. But, Naomi, I never called you a mistake. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." The silence stretched between them as Naomi processed this revelation. 8 years of anger. 8 years of believing she'd been discarded. 8 years of protecting herself from a pain that had been based on a misunderstanding. "The ring," she whispered. Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box worn from years of being carried in his pocket. "I've carried it with me every day since you disappeared. I kept thinking that someday, somehow, I'd find you and get the chance to explain." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "Julian, Daddy." Ariel's voice interrupted them. She was standing in the doorway, looking pale but alert. "Can you come sit with me? The nurses are being boring." Julian immediately stood up, slipping the ring box back into his pocket. "Of course. Principessa, what would you like to do?" As they walked toward Ariel's room, Naomi followed behind them, her mind reeling. Everything she believed about that night, about Julian's feelings for her, had been wrong. She'd run away from the man who'd been planning to propose to her. In Ariel's room, Julian pulled a chair close to her bed. What shall we do to chase away the boredom? Tell me a story, Ariel said, settling back against her pillows. Tell me about when you and Mommy first met. Julian glanced at Naomi, who had taken her usual spot in the corner chair. Well, it was in a very important meeting with lots of serious businessmen in expensive suits. Were you wearing an expensive suit too? The most expensive suit I owned, Julian said solemnly. And I thought I was very important and impressive. Ariel giggled. But Mommy wasn't impressed. Your mommy walked into that conference room like she owned the entire building. She had on this blue dress that matched her eyes, and she carried herself like a queen. And when she started talking about her designs, Julian's voice grew soft with memory. I forgot every word I'd planned to say. Naomi felt her cheeks warm as she remembered that day. She'd been nervous about the presentation, but Julian's obvious admiration had given her confidence. Did you know right away that you liked her? Ariel asked. I knew right away that she was going to change my life, Julian said. I just didn't know how much. Ariel looked back and forth between her parents. So why didn't you get married? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Julian looked at Naomi, his eyes full of regret and longing. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Naomi said softly. Sometimes we don't communicate very well, and we hurt each other without meaning to. But you still love each other, Ariel said matter-of-factly. I can tell, Ariel, Naomi began, but her daughter held up a hand in a gesture that was pure Julian. I'm 7, not stupid. I see how Daddy looks at you and how you look at him when you think he's not watching. And you both look sad like you lost something important. Julian reached out and took Ariel's hand. You're very wise, Princess Essa. I get that from Mommy. She's really smart. Did you know she designed the prettiest building in all of Los Angeles? I'd love to see it, Julian said, looking at Naomi. Maybe, after I'm better, we can take a tour, Ariel suggested. And Daddy, you can show us your buildings in New York. Would you like that to visit New York? Ariel's face lit up. Would I get to see where you live and meet your friends? You'd get to see everything. I'd love to show you my city. As father and daughter continued talking, Naomi felt something shift inside her chest. Watching Julian with Ariel was like seeing him in a completely new light. Gone was the driven, sometimes ruthless businessman she'd known. In his place was a man who spoke to their daughter with infinite patience, who listened to her rambling stories about school as if they were the most important things he'd ever heard. That evening, after Ariel had fallen asleep, Julian and Naomi found themselves alone in the corridor again. She's incredible, Julian said softly. She's brilliant and funny and brave, and she's perfect. She asks about you sometimes. Naomi admitted about her father. I never knew what to tell her. You could have told her the truth. I thought I was protecting her from disappointment, from rejection. I thought Naomi's voice broke. I thought you didn't want us. Julian turned to face her fully. Naomi, I searched for you for 2 years. I hired private investigators. I called every contact we had in common. You disappeared so completely. It was like you'd never existed. I was pregnant and heartbroken and terrified. I thought you'd chosen Claudia. And I thought you'd realize you didn't love me enough to fight for us. They stood there in the fluorescent lighting, finally understanding the magnitude of their mutual misunderstanding. What happens now? Naomi asked quietly. Now I save our daughter's life, Julian said firmly. And then if you'll let me, I'd like to try to earn your forgiveness. And maybe we can figure out how to be a family. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, because what happens next will show you the true power of love and sacrifice. Julian, Naomi whispered, I never stopped loving you. Even when I hated you, I never stopped loving you. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. Then we'll Find our way back to each other, he said. However long it takes, however hard it is, we'll find our way back. He reached up and gently touched her cheek, and for a moment, 8 years of hurt and misunderstanding melted away. They were just Julian and Naomi again. Two people who found something rare and precious and nearly lost it to pride and miscommunication. For Ariel, Naomi said. For Ariel, Julian agreed. And for us, the next morning brought a flurry of pre-surgical preparations. Julian submitted to a battery of tests, while Ariel entertained herself by teaching him to fold origami cranes with the activity kit the hospital provided. In Japan, they believe that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, your wish will come true. Ariel explained, her small fingers working carefully with the colorful paper. What are you wishing for, Princessa? Ariel looked up at him with serious dark eyes. I'm wishing that after your surgery, you won't have to go back to New York without us. Julian's hand stilled on his partially folded crane. What would you like to happen instead? I want us to be a real family, like Emma's family at school. She has a mommy and a daddy who live in the same house and make pancakes together on Sunday mornings. Julian glanced at Naomi, who was pretending to read a magazine in the corner, but was obviously listening to every word. That sounds like a very good wish, Julian said carefully, but Principessa, wishes are complicated things. Sometimes they come true in ways we don't expect. Do you want to live with Mommy and me? The directness of the question left Julian speechless for a moment. More than anything in the world, he said finally. Ariel nodded approvingly and went back to her crane. Then I think my wish has a good chance of coming true. That afternoon, Dr. Martinez delivered the news they'd all been waiting for. All your tests came back perfect, Mr. Montenegro. We can schedule the surgery for Friday morning. 3 days, Naomi said, her voice tight with anxiety. The surgical team is excellent, Dr. Martinez assured them. Both procedures should go smoothly. Mr. Montenegro, you'll be in surgery for about 3 hours, and Ariel's procedure will take about 4. You'll both need several weeks of recovery, but the prognosis is very good. After the doctor left, Julian knelt beside Ariel's bed. Are you scared, Principessa? Ariel considered the question seriously a little. But I'm excited, too, because after the surgery, I'll have a piece of you inside me forever. And that means you'll never really be far away, even if you have to travel for work. Julian's eyes filled with tears. You're right. A part of me will always be with you. But Ariel, I want you to know I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I don't have to travel far from you ever again. You mean you'll stay in Los Angeles? I mean, I'll stay wherever you and your mommy are. Ariel looked over at Naomi. Mommy, are you crying because you're happy or because you're sad? Naomi wiped her eyes. Happy tears, baby. Definitely happy tears. As visiting hours ended and Julian prepared to leave for his hotel, Ariel caught his hand. Daddy, will you be here when I wake up from the surgery? Wild horses couldn't keep me away, Principessa. Promise. Julian leaned down and kissed her forehead. I promise. And I keep my promises. After Julian left, Ariel settled back against her pillows with a satisfied sigh. Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. I think Daddy's going to be really good at being a daddy. Naomi smoothed Ariel's hair. Why do you think that? Because he looks at me the same way you do. Like I'm the most important thing in the whole world. As Ariel drifted off to sleep, Naomi sat in the quiet hospital room and marveled at how much had changed in just 2 days. Her daughter had a father who adored her. She had answers to questions that had haunted her for 8 years. And for the first time since that terrible night in New York, she had hoped that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales had come true after. Oh, Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching the anxiety that hung over Los Angeles Children's Hospital. Like a storm cloud, Naomi had barely slept, spending most of the night watching Ariel breathe and praying to every deity she could think of. Julian arrived at dawn, carrying coffee and Ariel's favorite chocolate croissants from the French bakery down the street. "How is she?" he asked quietly, setting the breakfast on the bedside table. Scared, but trying to be brave, Naomi replied, "How are you?" Julian's smile was tight, terrified, but ready. Ariel stirred as the aroma of chocolate filled the room. "Is it surgery day?" she asked sleepily. "It is Principessa," Julian said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "But first, breakfast fit for a princess." As Ariel nibbled her croissant, Dr. Martinez appeared with a surgical team for final preparations. "Are you both ready?" she asked. Julian nodded firmly. "More than ready, Daddy." Ariel's small voice made everyone pause. What if something goes wrong? Julian took her hands in his. "Ariel, look at me. Do you remember what I promised you yesterday? That you'd be here when I wake up?" "That's right. And I keep my promises. No matter what happens in that operating room, I will be here when you open your eyes. We're going to get through this together, all three of us." Ariel studied his face, then nodded solemnly. "Okay, I'm ready." The pre-surgery preparations were a blur of medical jargon and consent forms. Julian was prepped first, and as they wheeled him toward the operating room, he called out to Ariel, "I love you, Principessa. See you on the other side." "I love you, too, Daddy." 30 minutes later, it was Ariel's turn. Naomi walked alongside the gurney, holding her daughter's hand. "Mommy, will you be okay without me?" Ariel asked, her words slightly slurred from the pre-surgery medication. "I'll be right here waiting for you, baby. Both Daddy and I will be here. Promise you won't fight while we're sleeping." Naomi's heart clenched. "I promise, sweetheart." As the operating room doors closed behind Ariel, Naomi finally broke down. 8 years of being strong, of handling everything alone, crashed over her in waves of terror and exhaustion. She found herself in the family waiting room, sobbing into her hands when a gentle touch on her shoulder made her look up. It was Elena Montenegro, Julian's sister, whom Naomi remembered from their brief time together. "Elena, how did you?" "Julian called me yesterday. I flew in this morning." Elena sat beside her, wrapping Naomi in a warm hug. "I'm here for all of you." "I'm so scared," Naomi whispered. "Of course you are. But Julian is strong, and for what he tells me, Ariel is even stronger. They're both fighters." Over the next 6 hours, Elena proved to be exactly what Naomi needed, a calm presence who understood the magnitude of what was happening. She brought updates from the nurses, made sure Naomi ate something, and shared stories about Julian's childhood that made Naomi laugh despite her anxiety. He used to build these elaborate fortresses out of couch cushions, Elena was saying when Dr. Martinez finally appeared. "Miss Chin, the surgery went beautifully. Both Julian and Ariel are in recovery and everything looks perfect." Naomi's legs gave out with relief. Elena caught her arm, steadying her. "When can I see them?" "Julian should be waking up in about an hour. Ariel will take a bit longer. Her surgery was more complex, but she's stable and her new kidney is already functioning." The recovery room was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Julian lay still and pale, but his breathing was steady. When Naomi took his hand, his eyes fluttered open. "Ariel," his voice was from the breathing tube. "She's perfect," Naomi said, tears streaming down her face. The surgery was a complete success. Julian closed his eyes in relief. "Thank God. How do you feel?" "Like someone removed one of my organs," he said with a weak smile. "But also like I've never been happier in my life." Over the next few days, Naomi split her time between 2 hospital rooms. Julian recovered quickly, the natural resilience that had driven his career serving him well and healing. Ariel's recovery was slower, but steady, her body gradually accepting its new kidney. On the 3rd day post-surgery, the doctors decided Julian was well, enough to visit Ariel in her room. He moved carefully, still sore from the surgery, but his face lit up when he saw his daughter sitting up in bed coloring in a sketch pad. "Daddy, Ariel's face beamed. Look, I'm drawing our house. Julian looked at the crayon drawing. A house with 3 stick figures standing. In front, a tall man, a woman with long dark hair, and a small girl between them, all holding hands. Our house? Julian asked, settling carefully into the chair beside her bed. The house we're going to live in when we get out of the hospital. It has a big kitchen for making pancakes and a workshop where you can design buildings and a garden where Mommy can grow flowers. Julian looked at Naomi over Ariel's head. They hadn't discussed living, arrangements, hadn't talked about the future beyond the surgery. But Ariel, in her 7-year-old wisdom, had already mapped out their life together. That sounds like a perfect house, Julian said softly. I drew it in Los Angeles, because that's where Mommy's job is. But maybe sometimes we can visit New York, so I can see your tall buildings. Maybe we can, Julian agreed. That evening, after Ariel had fallen asleep, Julian and Naomi found themselves alone together for the first time since the surgery. She's remarkable, Julian said, watching their daughter sleep peacefully. She's been through major surgery, and she's already planning our future. She gets that from you, Naomi said. The ability to see possibilities where others see obstacles. Julian turned to look at her. Naomi, about what Ariel said about living together. I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't feel pressured, Naomi interrupted. I feel hopeful. For the first time in 8 years. I feel like maybe we can really do this. You mean it? Instead of answering with words, Naomi leaned over and kissed him. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as 8 years of longing poured out between them. When they broke apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. I never stopped loving you. I love you, too, she whispered back. Even when I hated you, I loved you. If you believe in the healing power of love and second chances, hit that like button and share this story with someone who needs hope today, because what you're about to witness will restore your faith and happy endings. The next morning brought wonderful news. Ariel's kidney function was excellent, and both patients were clear to go home within the week. Home, Ariel said thoughtfully, as Dr. Martinez explained the discharge procedures. Will we all go to the same home? Julian and Naomi exchanged glances. They talked late into the night about logistics, about Julian moving his practice to Los Angeles, about blending their lives after 8 years apart. We're working on that, Principessa, Julian said. But yes, I think we can arrange for us all to go to the same home. Ariel clapped her hands together. Good, because I have plans for us. Oh, really? Naomi laughed. What kind of plans? Well, first we need to have a tea party so I can introduce Daddy to all my stuffed animals properly. Then we need to make pancakes together like a real family. And then Ariel's face grew. Serious. Then we need to have a wedding. A wedding? Live in the same house? Julian, unless you're married? Ariel explained matter-of-factly. Emma's mom told me that's the rule. Julian looked at Naomi, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Well, we certainly can't break Emma's mom's rules. Julian, Naomi, warned, but she was fighting a smile. Actually, Princippa, I've been carrying something around for a long time, waiting for the right moment. Julian carefully reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the worn velvet box. Ariel's eyes widened. Is that a ring box? It is indeed. Julian got down on one knee beside Ariel's hospital bed, wincing slightly from his surgery. Naomi Walker, 8 years ago I bought this ring because I knew I wanted to spend my life with you. I've carried it every day since, hoping for a second chance. Naomi's hands flew to her mouth as Julian opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the same blue as her eyes. I know we have a lot to work through, a lot of trust to rebuild, but Ariel is right. We need to be a real family. So, will you marry me? Will you let me love you and Ariel for the rest of our lives? Say yes. Mommy. Ariel bounced excitedly in her bed. Say yes, so we can have a tea party. Through her tears, Naomi laughed. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Julian slipped the ring on too, her finger with shaking hands, then leaned up to kiss her while Ariel cheered from her hospital bed. This is the best day ever, Ariel declared, even better than Christmas. As Julian and Naomi held each other, both crying and laughing at the same time, they knew that Ariel was right. It was the best day ever. The day their family finally found its way back together. Outside the hospital room, Elena Montenegro wiped tears from her own eyes as she watched her brother hold the woman he'd never stopped loving and the daughter he just met but would protect with his life. Sometimes, she thought, the best love stories are the ones that almost end before they have a chance to truly begin. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what you've really had all along. And sometimes it takes a brave little girl who needs a kidney to show two stubborn adults that love is always worth fighting for. 3 weeks later, Naomi stood in the doorway of their Los Angeles home. The same craftsman style house she bought when Ariel was 2, but now it felt completely transformed. Julian's architectural drawings were spread across the dining room table. His coffee mug sat next to hers on the kitchen counter, and his laughter echoed from the living room where he was having a very serious tea party with Ariel and her collection of stuffed animals. Mr. Whiskers would like more sugar in his tea, Ariel announced solemnly. Of course, Julian replied with equal gravity. One must never serve Mr. Whiskers unsweetened tea. It's simply not done. Naomi smiled, watching the man who commanded million-dollar construction projects negotiate the complex social hierarchy of stuffed animal etiquette. Recovery had been a journey for all of them. Julian learning to be a father, Ariel adjusting to having a dad, and Naomi learning to trust again. The first week had been the hardest. Julian, still healing from surgery, had stayed in the guest room, giving Naomi space while being close enough to help with Ariel's recovery. They'd moved carefully around each other, polite but distant. 8 years of hurt, not easily erased by a hospital proposal. It was Ariel who'd broken through their careful politeness. Why are you and Daddy acting like strangers? She'd asked one morning over breakfast. You're supposed to be in love, sweetheart. Grown-up love is complicated. Naomi had tried to explain. No, it's not. Ariel had replied matter-of-factly. You either love someone or you don't. And you both love each other. I can see it in your eyes. So stop being scared and act like it. Out of the mouths of babes. That afternoon, Naomi had found Julian on the back porch sketching ideas for a playhouse he wanted to build for Ariel. She's right. You know, Naomi had said, settling beside him on the porch swing. About what? About us being scared. I've been so afraid of getting hurt again that I've been holding back. Julian had set down his pencil and looked at her. I've been afraid, too. Afraid that if I push too hard, too fast, you'll realize this was all a mistake and disappear again. I'm not going anywhere, Julian. We're not 25 anymore. We're parents now, and Ariel needs us to figure this out. What do you need? He'd asked softly. I need you to be patient with me. I need time to trust that this is real, that you're really here to stay. I have all the time in the world, he'd promised. However long it takes, and he'd been true to his word. Julian courted her all over again, bringing her coffee in the morning, listening to her work stories, sharing his own dreams about scaling back his practice to focus on sustainable community projects. He learned Ariel's routines, her favorite bedtime stories, her inexplicable fear of butterflies, and her passionate love of dinosaurs. Most importantly, he'd been patient. When Naomi flinched away from his touch one evening while watching a movie, he'd simply squeeze her hand and said, "It's okay. We'll get there." And slowly they did. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday evening. Ariel had been asleep for hours, and Julian was working late on his laptop, while Naomi read beside him on the couch. She'd looked up to find him, watching her, his green eyes soft with longing. "What?" she'd asked. I was just thinking about how many evenings I dreamed of exactly this. You reading beside me, Ariel, safe and healthy down the hall, all of us together. Something in his voice, the raw vulnerability of it, broke through her last defenses. Julian, she'd whispered, setting down her book. I know, he'd said, understanding immediately. I know you're not ready. She'd silence him with a kiss, pouring 8 years of longing and love and forgiveness into the connection between them. When they'd finally broken apart, both breathing hard, she'd rested her forehead against his. I'm ready, she'd whispered. I'm ready to stop being afraid. Mommy, Ariel called from the living room. Come meet Princess Sparkles. Daddy says she's new to tea parties and needs proper introductions. Naomi joined them on the living room floor, accepting a tiny plastic cup with Moxemity. Princess Sparkles, it's an honor to meet you. Ariel beamed with satisfaction. Now we're all here, the whole family. Almost the whole family, Julian said mysteriously. But we're missing something important. What are we missing? Ariel asked. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wrapped package. This is for you, Principessa, an early birthday present. Ariel's eyes widened as she unwrapped the gift, revealing a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm in the shape of a house. It's beautiful, Ariel breathed. But my birthday isn't for 2 months. This is a special birthday, Julian explained. Today marks 2 months since our surgery. 2 months since we became a real family. I thought that deserved celebrating. Ariel held up her wrist as Julian fastened the bracelet. I love it, Daddy. I'll wear it forever. There's something engraved on the back of the charm, Julian said softly. Ariel turned the tiny house over and read aloud. To Ariel, who taught us. That home isn't a place. It's wherever your family is. Tears prick her eyes. Daddy. Julian caught her gaze over Ariel's head and winked. Group hug. Ariel announced, launching herself at both parents. They collapsed in a tangle of arms and laughter, and Naomi thought her heart might burst from happiness. That evening, after Ariel had gone to bed wearing her new bracelet and clutching Mr. Whiskers, Julian and Naomi sat on their back porch swing, planning their wedding. Ariel has very strong opinions about the ceremony, Julian said, consulting the list their daughter had dictated earlier. Something about requiring at least 6 kinds of flowers, and a cake as tall as Daddy. A 7-year-old wedding planner. Naomi laughed. What could go wrong? Actually, I've been thinking, Julian said, his voice growing serious. What if we let her plan the whole thing? Keep it small, intimate, focus on what she thinks a wedding should be. Naomi looked at him in surprise. Really? You don't want some grand architectural celebration? I want whatever makes our daughter happy. And you happy? Julian took her hand, playing with her engagement ring. Naomi, I've spent 8 years without you. I don't need a big wedding to prove our love is real. I just need you to say I do and mean it. I mean it, she said softly. I've meant it since the moment you walked back into that hospital. Julian lifted there, joined hands, and kissed her knuckles. Then let's give Ariel the wedding of her dreams in our backyard with 6 kinds of flowers and a ridiculously tall cake. That sounds perfect. 6 weeks later, their backyard was transformed into Ariel's vision of wedding perfection. 6 varieties of flowers created a rainbow, arch under which Julian and Naomi would exchange vows. A 3-tiered cake, not quite as tall as Julian, but impressive nonetheless, sat on a table decorated with more flowers and fairy lights. Ariel, resplendent in a pink dress she'd chosen herself, served as both flower girl and wedding coordinator, directing the small gathering of family and friends with the confidence of a seasoned event planner. Places everyone she announced, Daddy, you stand here, Uncle. Mike Start the music, who had flown in from New York with Julian's parents. Press play on the carefully curated playlist Ariel had assembled as the opening notes of Can't Help Myself filled the air. Ariel's favorite song, Julian, took his place under the flower arch. Naomi appeared at the back door, radiant in a simple cream dress that Julian had never seen, but that somehow perfectly captured her elegance and grace. Ariel had insisted on walking her down the aisle, and they made their way across the lawn hand in hand. "Take care, my mommy," Ariel whispered seriously to Julian as she delivered Naomi to his side. "Always," Julian promised solemnly. When it came time for vows, Julian spoke first. "Naomi, 8 years ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. I spent those years learning that success means nothing without someone to share it with, that accomplishment is hollow without love, that all the beautiful buildings in the world can't replace the home I found in your arms." His voice grew thick with emotion. "You gave me the greatest gift I could ever receive, our daughter, and now you're giving me another gift, the chance to be the man you and Ariel deserve. I promise to love you both with everything I have for all the days of my life." Naomi wiped tears from her eyes before speaking. "Julian, I spent 8 years convincing myself that I was stronger alone, that Ariel and I didn't need anyone else. But love isn't about need. It's about choice. And I choose you every day for the rest of our lives. I choose the laughter you bring to our home, the patience you show our daughter, the way you make ordinary moments feel magical. I choose us, our beautiful, complicated, perfect family." As they exchanged rings, Ariel beamed with satisfaction from her place of honor beside the pastor. "You may kiss the bride," Pastor Williams announced. Julian cupped Naomi's face in his hands and kissed her deeply. 8 years of separation dissolving in that perfect moment. Their guests cheered, and Ariel threw handfuls of flower petals into the air with abandon. "And now," Ariel announced as they broke apart, "we eat cake and dance and live happily ever after. Is that how it works?" Julian asked, scooping Ariel up in his arms. "That's exactly how it works," Ariel said confidently. "I read it in all the best books." As the sun set over their backyard reception, Julian danced with his new wife while Ariel spun in circles nearby, her princess dress twirling around her legs. Their family and friends mingled on the lawn, sharing stories and laughter and joy. If this story moved your heart, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of forgiveness and second chances. Sometimes love requires us to swallow our pride. Sometimes it asks us to be vulnerable when we'd rather be safe. And sometimes it demands that we choose hope over fear. Subscribe for more stories that will touch your soul and remind you that no matter how broken something seems, love always finds a way to heal what matters most. Remember, true love isn't about never making mistakes. It's about having the courage to make things right. And sometimes the person who broke your heart is the only one who can truly heal it. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next.